Hey everybody. I hope you liked that video. Uh, and it really has so much in it and really exciting. It's good. It was even cool to see people like Kevin Smith and Stephen Colbert in there. Um, I'm kind of showing you the study guide for this video, and which you probably already have and were using, hopefully, while you watched it. But I kind of wanted to use it as a guide for my video. So just to quickly move through these archetypes, the first one they talk about is the hero's journey. This is an issue of a transition of identity, and it's something that we all go through, right? The hero starts out as nobody. Um, and I kind of want to just kind of point out that there are so many other movies besides Star Wars that fit these same archetypes. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and so I'm going to use Harry Potter. I'm also again the Disney fan, and so many of these mythological archetypes you can find in Disney movies. So I'm just going to give you a few examples. I'm sure you have a whole bunch of your own. So obviously with Harry Potter, this idea of transitioning and him coming to understand that he is a wizard, right? He starts out as a kid who just lives in a cupboard, and then he gets the call. He finds out that he gets the letters, and then eventually he runs into Hagrid, who comes to get him, and he finds out that he's a wizard, and it's confusing to him, and he doesn't quite understand that, and it's a process for him understanding not only that he's a wizard, but his his true identity and how great a wizard he is. Usually, there's this threshold crossing where you move into the unknown. This, of course, would be Diagon Alley when he comes into the wizarding world. Um, let's see, and of course, the hero has to undergo a number of different labors that he has to kind of go through to become an adult, and oftentimes he there's a wound or a loss, and we see a number of different losses, people that he loses along the way, Harry at least. Um, and let's see, and once you make that loss, then suddenly you gain wisdom and you learn about yourself. The idea of mentors, right, is an important idea, and we all have those as well, right? These people who act in our lives. Now, with a lot of these stories, these mentors are often different, right? They're almost magical, and they give the hero their origin story. This is Dumbledore and maybe a little bit of Hagrid. Um, and the hero is set on his path by these mentors, right? And oftentimes you have the mentor is not always normal size or shape, and that's helpful because it teaches us that we can gain wisdom from anyone in our life, people who we don't even expect that we would be able to draw wisdom from. And usually there's some kind of spiritual awakening where a person comes into some new mental idea, some higher understanding, and the mentor provides that. But the mentor always has to move on. The mentor usually dies or has to go away for the hero to kind of show that he has internalized all the things that he was taught. The next part of the video talks about friendships and warriors and women. I particularly like the part about women here. First of all, companions are necessary for heroes' success. Most hero stories have a bunch of people all going together, a group of friends, Harry and Hermione. I mean, name any Disney story, and you've got a bunch of different friends. A lot of the times, they're different animals that are all coming together, and that's helpful to know. These teams are usually imperfect and they're diverse, and that's the only way to really be successful. I love what going back to the idea about the female characters. There's really three stages of womanhood here that can get identified. First, that young warrior, that strong, aggressive, youthful woman who is powerful and can fight just as tough as men. I love that. The second part of it is the princess archetype. Where this is the romantic. This is the your typical in relationship. The purpose of that is to kind of develop that emotional side of the woman. The third part is that earth mother, the protective, the mom, the grandmother Willow of Pocahontas, right? This nurturing uh, female character who gives knowledge to the hero. Also, warriors around the hero, they develop brotherhood, and they have to often open their hearts, and they have to grow and develop. And those are usually some side stories. Also talks about sidekicks and faithful followers. They're not always helpful, but they're along to kind of give perspective. Talks about monsters, which are oftentimes not only are they tasks on the hero's journey, but they also stand as symbols for the internal monsters within the hero. So there's that external and internal battle that goes on, and that's what goes on with us as well, right? We struggle with things that are going on outside of us, but oftentimes they're just functions of what we're struggling with internally. Next, it talks about evil, and he talks about how power is attractive, right? Power being the main focus of evil, and that there's even in these stories, in these myths, there's often they describe it having a visual reward, right? The cool costumes, the capes. Um, they talk about fear and loss often being the things that motivate the evil characters, and it's this idea about being afraid to lose that causes the anger and forces them to try to get more power so that they can prevent the loss, right? Uh, Voldemort, right, is afraid of dying, and so what does he do? He creates Horcruxes to be able to prevent himself from dying. We also talks about evil having being connected to emotion and passion, and that unbridled passion leading to tragedy, and that the efforts of the evil character often are the very thing that they're trying to prevent, right? They cause that. Um, Next, we talks about the idea of justice and liberty and war. Governments, we can learn about our world here that governments kind of create artificial crises to gain power. That sometimes, oh, well, it's emergency power. Those are very rarely ever relinquished. And oftentimes, republics destroy themselves from within. And also, tyrants will capitalize on fear and using absolutes. It's either me or it's, you're evil, right? So look out for these things. These kinds of things are powerful lessons to learn about how we can um, be wary of the things around us. Talks about man versus machine, kind of the evil empire here, color of absolutes, and what is a machine universe, loss of humanity, uniformity, usually sterile, lifeless. It's a hollow nature. There are very few men. It is very much, it's very much or very few women. It's very much a masculine, violence-driven, power aggressive, um, and you do what you're told, not necessarily what is right. Where the opposite of that is humanity. These are the champions of diversity and coalition. And will machines? We can use machines, our cell phones, social media. We can use these things, but are they going to be used for good or for evil? And lastly, dealing with redemption and resurrection. This idea about how do we deal with evil? Do we give in to the evil, or do we preserve ourselves and run away from it, or kill the villain? Or is there the goal to redeem? And redemption must include recovering one's humanity, which means facing death. And Harry does this with, going and giving himself up, giving his life. I mean, a very messianic, very Jesus figure um, is oftentimes, and Luke does that as well. Um, and so redemption must include, recognizing and facing death. So myths open our heart to the dimension of mystery in our lives, and it helps us on our own hero's journey. So I hope you liked the video, and there's a lot here that you could probably draw on to be able to tell us what we can. So to look for these things in all the movies that we watch, and that's really where this whole unit benefits. Is if we start to pay attention to these things in our own lives, and we start to understand them in our movies.